Let's be real. A new roof is one of the biggest checks you're ever going to write for your home. It's a massive investment. Get it right, and you're golden for decades to come. But get it wrong? You could be looking at thousands in repairs and replacements way sooner than you think. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you.
So let me ask you a question just to get you thinking. What do you figure is the most expensive part of a cheap roof? Is it the shingles? The labor? What do you think?
Yep, replacing it. That's the answer. This is the big idea we're going to unpack today. Getting fixated on that low upfront price, it's a trap, and it often leads to way higher costs down the road.
And that right there is our very first mistake, the price tag trap. It's probably the most common pitfall for homeowners, but learning to look beyond that initial number, well, that's the key to making a really smart investment.
So check this out. This slide completely flips the script on how we think about cost. Instead of just looking at that sticker price, let's think in terms of cost per year. You know, a cheap shingle roof might only last 10, maybe 15 years. So when you break it down, its annual cost is actually much higher than a premium steel roof that can last over half a century. The real takeaway here is that true value, it's measured over the lifetime of the roof, not just on the day it gets installed.
And hey, it's not just steel. This principle applies across the board with high-quality materials. Copper can literally last for over 100 years. Slate and tile give you decades and decades of durability. Even high-end architectural shingles can easily double the lifespan of their bargain bin cousins. Thinking long-term isn't just for peace of mind. It actually saves you cold, hard cash.
All right, so that leads us right into our next couple of big mistakes, and they're all about ignoring what your house actually needs. You see, a roof doesn't exist in a bubble. It has to be the perfect fit for your home and just as important for your local climate. Mistake number 2 is ignoring your climate. I mean, just think about the absolute beating your roof has to take. In a place like Kansas, for example, you've got these wild temperature swings from below 0 to over 100 degrees. That causes materials to constantly expand and contract. Then you throw in severe thunderstorms, huge hail, and winds whipping at over 110 miles an hour, and you've basically got a recipe for disaster if your roof isn't built for it. A material that can't handle that kind of punishment will fail. It's really that simple.
So how do you fight back against something like hail? Well, you're going to want to look for this magic phrase, a Class 4 impact rating. It is the highest rating a roofing material can get, which basically means it can take a serious punch. We're talking simulated 2-inch ice balls. And here's the best part. A Class 4 rating doesn't just protect your home, it can actually lower your insurance premiums too.
And that brings us to mistake number 3, completely overlooking your home's structure. You can't just throw any old roof on any house. Heavy-duty materials like slate or concrete tiles, well, they can put a massive strain on your home's frame. If you don't get a proper structural check, you could be looking at serious sagging, or even worse, a total collapse.
Okay, so you've thought about the price, you've thought about the physical demands on your house. Now it's time to tackle mistakes 4 and 5, which is all about not understanding the paperwork. A good warranty can be an absolute lifesaver, but only if you actually know what you're looking for. Let's kick things off with mistake number 4, falling for a prorated warranty. 30-year warranty sounds amazing, right? But prorated means its value goes down every single year. So that amazing warranty could be almost worthless by the time you actually need it. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at that nosedive. In year 1, you're 100% covered. Awesome. But fast forward to year 15, and maybe you're only getting 40% of the replacement cost. By year 25, it's just a tiny fraction of what you paid. This right here is why the word prorated should be a massive red flag for you. So what's the good stuff? What should you be looking for instead? This is how you avoid mistake number 5, ignoring the important ratings. Here's your little cheat sheet. First, a non-prorated warranty, one that holds its value. Second, a transferable warranty. That's a fantastic selling point if you ever decide to move. And third, a Class A fire rating for maximum safety and, you guessed it, potential insurance breaks.
But you know, a warranty is only as good as the company that writes it, right? If they go out of business, that piece of paper isn't worth a thing. And that brings us to our 6th big mistake, not vetting the manufacturer.
So how do you check them out? Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's really just a simple 4-step process. 1, do a little digging on their history and reputation. 2, read recent independent reviews. 3, make sure they're financially stable enough to actually be around to honor that long-term warranty. And finally, stick with products that have a long proven track record. It's a really good sign of reliability.
Okay, we've covered materials, warranties, and manufacturers. but that brings us to our final mistakes. And honestly, they all boil down to one simple thing: not trusting the experts.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Ignoring this wisdom is mistake number 7, discounting a local pro's experience. A good local contractor knows which materials actually hold up in your area's climate because they've seen what works and what doesn't with their own 2 eyes. That kind of real-world knowledge is priceless, and it's something you'll never ever find in a sales brochure. And that kind of expertise prevents the final mistake on our list: using materials that just don't play well together. Here's a perfect, kind of nerdy example. A homeowner might not know that putting copper flashing next to a galvanized steel roof creates a chemical reaction. It's called galvanic corrosion, and it will literally eat away at the metal. A pro will spot that problem from a mile away and make sure every single component of your roof, right down to the screws, is compatible.
So when you boil it all down, avoiding all these mistakes is really about one big mental shift. You've got to stop thinking like a short-term buyer who's just focused on that initial price. Instead, you need to start thinking like a long-term owner, someone who cares about lifetime value, durability, and most importantly, peace of mind.
So now you have the playbook. You know the traps to look out for. I'll just leave you with this one final thought to chew on. Based on everything we just covered, what's the very first question you should ask any contractor you're thinking about hiring?